My name is Turgay. I'm the head of technology at ISP, in charge of how technology is used in school, both from teachers and staff and students' perspective. So we are here to understand why ISP is investing in technology and what it means for staff, for students, and for you as a parents. So what you should expect from this. Pretty sure you have many questions. I'll just spend like 7-8 minutes talking about why we do what we do, and then I will ask Mr. Mustafa and Ms. Monica to take on stage and show you how they use technology in the classroom, just to give you an idea, a glimpse into how it would be used in the classroom. Okay, now let's start our vision. We have a vision. Our school, ISP, has set this vision. We would like our students be empowered as problem solvers, to be creators in a changing world. The world has changed in a rapid way, and become global citizens. That is our vision, and that is exactly why we have chosen this to be our purpose. Whatever we do is just to fulfill this. And if you ask this question, why you have chosen these? So why these are very important for you, or for us, or for my children? Why they are very important? Well, they are important because when you look, make a simple, hello, welcome. When you go to Google, search job skills. Okay, let's say your child is in year 7 or year 10, and they will go to first college, and then will graduate and finally get a title and diploma or some certificates, and will be looking for a job. So what skills you want your child to have? How do you know that? In a very rapidly changing world, it's very hard to know. But thanks to some companies who really heavily invest on those research, and they have an idea into the future, like in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, what are the most demanding skills that those children should have? If you Google it, you're going to find that your list will not be very different than somebody else's list. Now, we are looking closely to some of those reports, especially the one that I use by Horizon, which works closely with many universities, colleges, and many other companies, obviously. Their findings tell us that the skills that are required by the students to have is almost pretty much the same. When you look at the top 3, they are usually about problem solving, usually about collaboration, team working, and usually about creativity and critical thinking. So those are usually in the top 5, give or take, so they will be in the most top 5 skills that everybody has to have, so as core skills. So whatever job they will do, doesn't matter if it's technology oriented or not, so those skills that they must have. And based on those, we decided our vision to be like that. So what does it mean, like creativity for a student? What happens if a student is creative? And how is this different than how we do or how we use technology in our classroom? I'll show you a video. Probably it will be easier for you to understand it. But when there is critical thinking, when there is creativity, there is engagement. Because you are asking your students to think, not only to memorize something and then ask them in a test exam, like, give me what you have learned, but to analyze it, and then synthesize it, merge it with other information, and be able to give it to you in a creative way. Not always in a written way. It can be in a completely different format. It can be a voice recording, it can be a video, it can be graphs, illustrations. Now, those tools that we use now allow this creativity. And the second one, collaboration. Collaboration is very, very, very easy now with the tools involved. They don't even have these physical boundaries. They can still work in a team no matter where they are. And another feature is those devices bring to us is mobility. As you know, like, they don't really have to buy physical books anymore. They will have those resources in their iPads on this small device. And they will take this device wherever they go. They don't have to have their books all the time. When they go home, when they go up in the mountains, when they go to seaside, wherever they can take their iPads, everything they carry in their iPad will be with them. Their work, their resources, their search results, their libraries, everything will be there. So these are only the main three things that are provided as a benefit. And that's how we build up our vision. Now, again, we can talk about this, but after my colleague's demo, we will have a question and answer, so I will be happy to answer your questions. Okay? Now, there is this 3-minute video made by Apple, which talks about homework and how those students would use a creative approach to doing homework. Please keep in mind, it's a creative approach. It's a different one. And try to understand the principles, the rationale, and the differences between a traditional homework doing and that one. Because the skills that students develop doing this is far beyond what the traditional methods. Let's take a look at it.
Settle, please. Eyes up here. Eyes up here. We're not done. Group 3. Let's have Ivy and Michael, Ryan, Sally, and Thomas. Thomas, your homework is to explore gravity. Okay, don't forget, projects are due on Friday. Friday, please. Friday, and don't forget your homework.
Homework. Oh, homework. I hate you. You stink. I wish I could wash you away in the sink. If only a hippo would smash you to bits. Homework. Oh, homework. You're giving me fits. I'd rather take baths with a man-eating shark, or wrestle a lion alone in the dark, eat spinach and liver, pet 10 porcupines, then tackle the homework my teacher assigns. Homework. Oh, homework. You were last on my list. I simply can't see why you even exist. If you just disappeared, it would tickle me pink.
Next up, Group 3.
Homework. Oh, homework. I hate you. You stink.
Yep. So if we are to use technology, that means we are preparing our children to be future-proof, because they will already be developing those skills. So that's the
Settle, please.
That's one of the variables. Of course, students maybe use it very creatively, but the bigger dilemma is with the teachers, right? Students don't need any training. Unfortunately, teachers need those, and that's where we are heavily investing and training our teachers and organizing workshops, and then planning those, making sure that they can also use it in their lessons creatively. So now in that video you've seen how students would use these devices, but it's not only for delivering homework in a creative way, but also teaching in a creative way. So teachers should be creative as well. But my colleagues will show you anyway, but I have another video here which is already 2 minutes long, and you could see how a teacher would use, again, iPad in her class, again in a creative way.
So first thing you're going to do is get into E.O. Wilson's in chapter 17.
I start with E.O. Wilson's book, Life on Earth. The book allows students to interact with the text in a way that a traditional book does not. They're able to visualize structures in the body in a 3D way where they can manipulate it and move it around. There's a lot that we can do in the classroom with the iPad, especially in the labs where we have the ability now to run lots of experimentation and collect data within apps. One of the stations is on histology, or looking at the tissue. In the past, the students would actually look in the microscope and try to draw the picture. Today, the MotoConnect app allows them to visualize what the microscope is projecting. And they have this clear image that they can annotate on their iPad and save. When they see a narrowed artery with less room for blood flow, it makes them understand how that can become a problem. And by using an app like BioDigital Human, they can visualize how the blood flow actually is decreased. At the heart rate station, students are able to use Passcode heart rate sensors to monitor their own heart rate over time, and they can exercise and see how that changes it. And they record everyone's data. And then the best part of it is when they start trying to analyze that data. Is it because you're a girl and I'm a boy? Is it because I'm a swimmer and you're not? They just have these great conversations trying to figure out, why is it different? After they've worked through the stations to learn the structure and the function, the last station that they will do is a dissection. What we realized is that the iPad is actually very helpful in making the hands-on part of it a deeper experience. It helps them identify structures. And then they can capture it all and you can annotate it and save it. They do a better job of the dissection because they've learned the material. After we finish the labs, the students will have to show what they've learned. The iPad allows students tons of choices. In order to demonstrate how blood flows through the heart, some students will draw on the lab tables and do a stop motion video and they'll put a voiceover on it.
The oxygenated blood goes through the superior vena cava.
Now I can see that they understand the structure of the heart and the pathway that the blood flows. I get so much more information out of that than if a student were just to answer 10 questions on a test. I think when you let students be creative and innovative, they do amazing things, way more than we would ever ask of them. With a heart unit, there's lots of great visualizations that I could never provide for them, and it makes the learning more concrete and it sticks with them. For me, the ultimate goal when my students leave the classroom at the end of the year is for them to have developed some problem-solving skills. They learn how to take care of themselves and how to make healthy lifestyle choices. The iPad has provided them a level of learning that has given them so much confidence. They can find their individual strengths and they learn in a way that works for them.
Sit now. I'd like to give stage to Ms. Monica. She's going to show you Team apps how she uses it in the classroom. And disconnect so you can.
Is it disconnect?
Yep.
Hello everyone, my name is Monica Țele. I'm teaching computing in primary but also secondary in year 7 and 8 this year. I'm going to show you some applications that I use in secondary, not in primary. The first one is a classroom management tool, which is called Apple Classroom, is the first one here. With this one, I kind of monitor what the students are doing on their own tablet. So they need to connect to this app. This is just an example. This is not a real classroom, as you can see. This is how I will see the tablets of your children, probably. What I can do here is I can open different programs on their tablets, if they don't follow my instructions, of course. Or I can choose to open different websites by pressing on, I can also select different students or different groups to open different programs if they work in groups. I can also choose to lock their screen, so if I lock it, they won't be able to do anything, just to listen to me while I'm teaching. I can also see what they are doing each time. And at the end of the lesson, I can also see which programs they have used, because who knows, maybe at some point I'm teaching them or I'm showing some group something and I cannot follow each time what each one is doing. So this is why at the end of the lesson I get a report and I see almost each second what was your students doing, your children doing, sorry. Okay,
And
well.
groups, you can also
Sorry?
create groups.
Yeah, I can also create groups. I don't really have here, but I can create one and I can choose which student to go in which group. And I can also monitor the group's activity as well. Well, that's kind of it with Apple Classroom. Something else I use in the computing lessons is Google Classroom. Here is where I usually send them their assignments, their lessons, if I prepare different presentations for them. As you can see here, I have my classes. Let's go on the first one. Here, for Google Classroom, I have already invited each one of your, actually each of my students to join Google Classroom. Most of them have already done that. As you can see, I already have some assignments for them. I send them, I don't know, different information if they have to do something, to download different apps. As you can see, I wrote there that they have to download Keynote because we will use it. In Google Classroom, I can also grade their projects because at some point I will ask them when is the due date for different projects and they have to upload them. And I can also grade them using this app. You can, as parents, you can also connect to their accounts to see what they are doing in Google Classroom.
Sorry, but how can
Yes.
we connect? We have to get an invitation from you?
Yeah, I will send you an invitation, you just need to ask. My email is monica.tele@isb.ro, and I can just, for example, I don't know, I will show you here. No, looks like in this classroom, no, none of the parents are connected, but maybe in year 7. No, looks like also here I don't have any parent connected, but I can invite you if you just send me an email. Okay, another application that I'm using with year 7 and 8 is Kahoot. Usually at the end of almost each lesson, but at least at the end of each unit, I'm preparing a short quiz for them to see what they understood from that unit. And basically what they need to do is just go to Kahoot. Kahoot prepares code for them. Sorry, I need to go to my Kahoots. Now, I can choose to play a live game, or I can also send them a challenge if I want them to complete the Kahoot at home. Usually in the lesson I'm using live challenge. And for collaboration we can even use team mode, because sometimes, at least so far, not each student brought his a tablet, so we can also use team mode, or I can use classic, and in the classic version they need to answer the questions one by one. So this is how it works. They just need to use the pin that you see up there, then they write their names. I usually ask them to write their real names and class, and this is how it works. This is basically it. And at the end I also get a report which is saved, and I can also see where, I don't know, what other questions or where I should, or what I should do next with them, so they can understand better their lessons. Oh, that's it from me. If you have any other questions, maybe at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stefan. Did you disconnect?
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Hello everyone, it's Mustafa. I've met some of you, I guess.
005.
Yeah. It's the same code, no?
Might be.
It shouldn't be the same code. Okay, so don't expect anything creative for now. We just started using iPad, as you know. And I'm gonna show you only 2 or 3 apps that I'm using. This is Google Classroom. I just prepared this to show you which apps that I'm going to use now. The first one is GeoGebra. This is for actually graphing, like see things in 3 dimensions. Example, for instance, if I'm teaching okay, I think it's gonna be fine. So if I'm teaching, let's say, year 9 inequalities, that they need to shade some areas. So this GeoGebra is very useful. So they can shade different areas, and then even they can find the conjunction, the area that 2 shaded areas they have to say they meet. This is conjunction. This is just one example. I'm teaching year 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I can use this app for different groups and different levels. They are all the applications here, or all the links that I'm going to show you, they are from different year groups. For example, this one is good for a year 10 or year 11 student because they are going to... I can play the video, right? No problem. This is video, but don't worry, we're not going to watch the video, just to show you. So kids, here they can investigate what a parabola is. So this is parabola, and we add sliders A, B, C. So if you change the sliders, you see what's happening now. So we can easily talk about the y-intercept, blah blah, all the things, and what's the minimum point, maximum point. So for IGCSE, that's a good use. This one, for example, here it's introducing the derivative, it says. So this is IB in standard level or higher level. So that's a good hands-on activity. They can just go here, they can create a graph, and they can find the tangent. And from here we can talk about the derivative, and it's interactive, so they will change the points and they see how it's changing. For every single mean point, they can find the tangent, the slope of the tangent line. So you see here. So without visualizing this, only drawing things on the board, just a few examples, might not be enough. But with this, they can see countless examples. One from high-level mathematics that they can use. This one, complex numbers. So it's not easy to visualize the roots of complex numbers, but when they have this app, so they can increase. When I increase this n, we are having more and more solutions to the problem. So they can relate the connection between those two roots. You see the w's, w1, w2, for example. The distance between them in terms of the angle, for example, how it's changing, how it's related. So if they increase this n or decrease n, we talk about this, of course, they watch the video about this, and then when they do this on their own, I think they learn better. Even more difficult topics that we have, it's more difficult to visualize. So when I say, for example, planes, like 3 different planes, and there is an intersection of those 3 planes at the same time. So the point that they intersect actually is not a point, it's a line, and to visualize this, it says click to see the line. And this red one, as you see, that's the intersection of 3 planes. And again, it's just very useful to visualize. Because in the book, you don't see, And transformations, again, this can be an IGCSE or also standard level. With the computer it's easy, but here I don't know how to stop this one. This is just showing this transformation means if you multiply a function by a number or the inside x by another number, or if you move, so it's basically translation, moving the function or making it compressed or stretched, etc. Now it's just moving as it was. I should have stopped, so I don't know how now. This animation is possible to stop with the computer, not here.
If you want to.
No, then you will not see the functions.
Ah.
I should just be able to click the A that's moving, with the right click, and then it says stop animation.
There is
a pause on the left.
Yeah.
This one?
No.
Yeah.
Left down.
And that one? Okay, thank you. So in there it's like this. I use the computer with this application. So I can just show them one by one here. So multiplying by a number A, which is like almost 2. What is the meaning of multiplying here? Like, so I talk about this as stretch. So, and then when I show it, so they understand. So I can ask another question. If A is negative something, or between 0 and 1, etc., etc. So they can visualize this easily. After this, the second app that I want to share with you is actually closer to this. It's also graphing one, but it's like more user-friendly for students. For teachers, GeoGebra is better because it's more professional, but for
Welcome
students,
to a quick video tutorial.
Desmos is much better. User-friendly, let's say. So we can do like more or less the
Add
same
a table
stuff.
and enter several x values. And then define our second column at.
So if you just enter the x values, you can get the y values using Desmos. So it really saves time. You don't have to plot every single point. If you don't already how to do it, so you
Desmos will automatically fill out the entire column. Naming functions can be particularly helpful when
and using GDC, we have started GDC in year 10, but year 9 also, like they're already buying the graphic display calculator. I mean, it's a calculator that you can graph functions. But it's not very user-friendly because it's a small screen, although in the exam it's the only option that you can use. But in the lesson it takes really time, so most of the time I directly go to Desmos or GeoGebra, and it's very fast, so I don't have to waste time with this small screen. And just one last example from those two applications, GeoGebra and Desmos. Again, it's
welcome to a quick
high
video
level
tutorial
mathematics.
on using it. Immediately reflect my change. Both the value and the visual of the definite.
So, calculating an integral takes time in the notebook. Yeah. Of course, they should know how to calculate it, but when it comes to seeing examples and when it comes to checking the answers, etc., these are very useful. You just put the values and you can change the values with sliders A and B, the limits, as you see. You can put any function you want, and it's just there. It's very easy to check your answers. So those two apps that I use in mathematics, and one last, I don't want to take your time longer than this, just one last. This is Socratic.
Meet Socratic by mastering student answers in real time.
So Socratic, I use this for quizzes. It can be just a classwork, or it can be a graded quiz, it doesn't matter. So how it works is, if you don't know, so you create questions, I don't know how many, it depends, like usually I create 10 questions and these are the students. When I put question number 1, for example, I shuffle them. So when students 1, for example, Ben is solving number 1, maybe Michael's number 1 is this question, so it's shuffled, they cannot cheat. Even the options are shuffled, like ABCs. So I put this on the board screen like this. When they are solving questions, easily I can see which student is doing good, which student is not, needs help, which is wrong. False means, so I should go to that student and I should help. And also it tells me about the whole picture in the class about the topic. So if I'm teaching surds now, for example, in year 10, I just started. So I can show you actually my real report. This is a quiz that I've done, for example, so show answers. So this tells me something. Maybe question number 6 was very difficult, that most of them couldn't answer, or maybe option, the answer was wrong, so there's something to check. And this is how they did. So when they start the very first minute, I have the chance to visit each student, and whenever I see a wrong answer, so it's a good time for me to just give the feedback or to correct it.
Sorry, is this public? Do they see this, or do only you see this?
They see this on the screen like this. But because the questions are shuffled, like they cannot cheat. They cannot cheat. So I can show the names here, or I can hide the names like this. So it's just my choice. And usually I do this because it's the beginning of the year, just to practice as classwork. But later on, if the technology allows us, the Wi-Fi connection and everything, we can even grade this, and it's not going to be like, it's just a classwork, so it's not assessment test or something. But even if I put the same questions from the book, it's still more engaging. If I say, okay, let's solve those 10 questions, they're not that motivated. But if I put the same questions, exactly the same questions, in this app, so they're more motivated and they're all working on the same questions. So that's all from me. I use, of course, more apps, but that's, I think, enough for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, I think we should never forget that there are always two sides to using technology. One from the side of the teacher, because it facilitates the learning process, as you've seen from those examples. It's just a glimpse. There are, of course, thousands of maybe millions of apps that every single teacher would use. And there's also student sides. So they will use the same technology, not only to understand and memorize, but just to reflect upon their own learning through taking ownership. So they can actually be creative. And that's where higher order thinking levels are achieved. Now, if you have questions about, please, let's see if we can.
Actually, I wrote to Mr. Bishop twice about this problem with the homework. I'm feeling that I'm losing control. I cannot see the homework of my child, and of course I wanted to know, for example, when they will get homework through the iPad or whatever, how can I see what he's doing? Because I'm not following all the time. And also Educare, I understood that we will see a list of the homework.
Yeah.
Because of course I want to have, to just follow what my child is doing to help him when he's not doing very well. So how can I follow actually and see where is the homework, what is he doing?
Once Educare is fully working, we started sending the daily reports yesterday. Teachers enter the summary of the homeworks on Educare, and that goes out in the daily report. But they could set that homework through Google Classroom, they could set it through their notebook, they could set it to be whatever they want. But the point to communicate with you is through Educare, so that you've got one place to go and look for it. And when the daily report comes out, it will tell you the due date and the date was set. And then you can log into Educare to see past homework, so that you don't have to rely on finding the emails all the time.
But most of the homework will be also electronic, or doesn't really
Depending on the class, it depends on the teacher. For my own students, my own daughters, I found up to this year, it's been about 60% on paper and about 40% electronic, depending on the subject. Maths, there was a lot more electronic when my eldest daughter had Mustafa as a teacher, and much less electronic homework for maths last year when she had a different teacher. And for her to develop those skills and being able to do it in both ways has been really useful to her. But I think with the training that we've invested in this year and with the experience the teachers are getting, I'm expecting to see a wider range of exercises being set and more of it to come through the iPad. For reasons that you saw with Mustafa's presentation there, you get very quickly and very easily a map of how students have done in the class. And to generate that sort of detail from a class test or from an exercise, it's really quite time consuming. You can put all the responses in Excel and you can graph them, but you're looking at a couple of hours worth of work, whereas if you set the work online, you can get that sort of diagnostic data really quickly. From a teacher, that's hugely important. The other thing, if I can just keep going for a minute, to keep in mind is the IB, the International Baccalaureate's our Year 12 and 13 exam body now. They are investing heavily in researching and trialling on-screen examinations. So not in the next 2-3 years, but certainly within the next 5 years, we're expecting to see the paper exams that students do in year 13 to become on-screen exams that are handled through a tablet where they log on securely, because the IB believes they can ask much more searching questions if in that model than just by paper questions where they give an answer. So the more our kids get used to using those devices and responding to those devices, the easier it can become when that comes in. Because when it comes in, we're not going to be able to choose one or the other. We'll have to follow the exam model we're using.
So they will be ready by then. Yeah, so our primary contact will be educare. So again, some teachers are testing different apps, trying to find out what is the best, and there will never be a best one. But again, for educare, that's where you should be following the homeworks.
But we are actually in the third week and I still not getting anything. So
You should have had daily report yesterday.
I got, I think, the report from Ms. Tsele, otherwise nothing. Just
But the data is now in. The system's now operating. So from yesterday, you'll find data is being set, homework's been set, comments have been set, marks will start to come in.
Yes, but regards homework, again, I'm getting the emails, for example, but the homework of different subjects. Now my son is year 7 and he has different teachers.
Yes, but it went live for us yesterday. So what you'll start seeing now over the next few days is that information being put in. The report I got yesterday showed homework for my youngest daughter for the last 2 weeks. So it's Educare. When it sends a daily report out, it looks for all the messages that haven't yet been sent. So there was a sort of catch-up message yesterday. Teachers will now start to add and use it better. We've got some new teachers in the school that we now need to show how to do those basic but important administrative tasks now that they've got their classes up and running. It takes time because every student has to be assigned to every class manually by the secretary, and there's always a significant number of new students coming into the school at the start of the year, so just building the basics behind the database takes a long time. However, the Educare programmers have made some improvements this year so that next year that should happen a lot quicker. But it's a process of building the database, putting the information in the right place so we can start to use it properly.
Any other question?
Who do we contact to log into Google Classroom?
Teachers?
Each teacher,
Separate,
not the headmaster.
Yeah. Because the Google Classrooms are set up by teachers at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Ms. Monica showed Apple Classroom, which we use to.
That was your classroom, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Apple Classroom and Google Classroom, not to be confused.
Mm-hmm.
They do completely different things, although the names are very similar. Apple Classrooms are set up by our IT department.
Mm-hmm.
So once we educate set up, and then we'll move those, and then they will automatically appear. Students are not asked to join it, so it works within the proximity of Bluetooth as soon as they enter the classroom. So in the example you see, they all grayed out. When they are physically here with their devices, they will be all active. So, but Google Classroom is a choice of teachers, so they create that classroom themselves, so should invite the parents exclusively.
Mm-hmm. And for Google Classroom, once your email, let's say, is linked to your child, if there is another teacher who's using also Google Classroom, you don't have to connect again over and over again. Just once it's enough. So if only one teacher links your email to your child, that's enough.
So if you invite us as
yes,
IT,
you will see all the other Google Classrooms, yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay, what do you use for Office? Do you have a recommendation? Yeah, like the Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
On the iOS, you have to have an Office like that. You said the Keynote.
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah, that's what I work, which comes free on iOS devices. It's free to upgrade, to buy it. We also have licenses from Microsoft, and these are valid for students. They have their own accounts, and yeah, they all have it on their. They can also use it on their personal devices at home, on their desktops, on their mobile devices. Yep, on their iPads they will have access to both Pages, Keynote, and also Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, our IT department will be pushing those apps to students' devices.
Right, okay. That's it for me.
When they open the Microsoft devices, they need to log in with their ISB email address. So all of our students have an isb.ro email address, and that's the licenses attached to
I know.
that email.
Any other question? I'm sure you will have, because you have to appreciate it's a lot of work. So I'm not sure if you're working for a company or if you're running a company. This change is very huge. Now, this traditional way of teaching, and also for the students, it'll be easy. That transition will be easy. They are already ready. They're born with technology. So you see infants just playing with iPad with no training at all. But when it comes to teachers and school, this has been a culture for so many decades. And now we are changing, and it will take time. So we should not expect immediate results. It will take time, but I believe we, school staff and parents, work together, we will achieve it for the sake of your own children's education. I'm hoping that because it's a requirement for each student to have an iPad, we are thinking of also organizing a few workshops for you as parents about how you can manage the use of those devices at home. In school, we have the ground, we make rules, we make sure that they are consistent and every staff follows them. So that's how we make sure that they are not misused. But when they're at home, as their parent, it's your responsibility. And we are here, we will always be here to share our own experience and just to contribute to your own parenting. And I think it's not fair that you expect this from our side, because when they are leaving school, there's nothing that we can do, on just give advice and recommendations. And I am already hearing and already expecting that this is becoming for some parents a serious issue, because they can't let just their iPads go away, and parents are not sure if they're working on a homework or just simply entertaining themselves or playing games. So there are certain rules and things that can be done, and as we make some progress ourselves, we'll be happy to help you and provide this kind of consultation if need be. Okay. If there's not any more question?
Other than principally restrictions built in on the settings, are there any ways that we can...
as a parent?
Yes, as a parent.
As a parent, the restrictions are going to be there based on the school. And when there's a restriction, it applies to both home and school. So there's no way that the restriction is valid when they're at home, and when they leave it's not. It doesn't work that way. That's not how the system is designed. So maybe it's a flaw, maybe it's a feature, we don't know. But that's how it is. So when there is a restriction, so it's for both home and school. For example, you want them to be limited to the apps that we provide as IT school. We can limit this. For example, students' iPads, they will never go on App Store and they will never be able to download anything else. We can take this freedom from them. But we have this choice from a technical point of view. But parents should agree to that. All parents should agree that we don't want to do any parenting over, and I don't want to confront my child over misuse of iPad. So I want App Store to be down so he cannot download any gaming or anything else. He will only be left with educational apps, so he will use iPad only for educational purposes. We can do that. But I don't think all parents will agree to that. So they have...
Definitely not.
Yeah. And this brings us things that we cannot restrict everything. So it has to be balanced, and there has to be a parenting, which is natural.
I used an app called Screen Time I don't anymore because both my girls have got so used to the fact that we're looking over the shoulders with it that I don't need to, and their iPads have just been reset for the school. But what screen time allowed us to limit the times that the iPad could be used. It allowed us to limit the category of app that could be used at certain times, but it also allowed us to get a report of what apps were open at what time for how long. So the whole, are they doing homework from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock? If they're sitting on Facebook, probably not, but if they've got the e-reader open, and they've got Google Classrooms open, and they've got Microsoft open, then they probably are. It's not perfect, but it was a start, and it allowed us to set some boundaries.
What do you think about our pet? It's an application. You can stop the tablet, you can start it.
I don't
so
know.
What you just said. This is the application, and you can stop the tablet anytime you want of your child.
What's the name again?
Run it. Our packet.
Our pack?
There is iOS 12. It's new update. I think screen time is included.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, there are certain parents apps that allow you to control your child's timing on the iPad, and there's also this screen time which comes native by iPad. You can set it. But what screen time does, which allows the person who's using the iPad just to have these organizational skills. When he says, oh, you spent too much time on Facebook, and they will see it and the screen, and they can simply bypass it. Okay, I still want to continue on Facebook. So it does not restrictly block it. But there are some certain apps, as you have said, and there are some examples of those, which might help you. But we still, from a technical point, have to look at this because we will be enforcing some profiles to your students' iPads, so then we can deliver all these experience to see if they are clashing or if they are working in tandem. So we have to see that. If you can, after your iPad, student's iPad, your child's iPad is enrolled, if this app still works, please let us know that we can also recommend it to the rest of the parents so they can benefit from this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please. Thank you.
You can stop it anytime.
Yeah.
Play a lot.
Yeah. I came across one app which was very brilliant. You're not only setting time, but you can also reward that you can ask your child to tidy the room and then clean, maybe help in the kitchen to mom, and then you can give them additional times only from your own device, and that time will be added. But unfortunately, the company doing this service only in US, and in the future maybe they will release it in Europe, so maybe we can make use of it. But with technology, this transition is so fast, maybe it will be soon. But whenever we know something might be of useful to parents, we'll always be happy to share it with you. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. You can always drop a message through secretary office, or my email, and we'll be happy to help you. Or you can always come for a face-to-face discussion. Yeah, it's very long though. You can put it up on the screen. Let me write it here.
It's much easier when teachers have shorter names.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge improvement for the teacher in benefit of student, but huge. It's amazing. It's the future now.
I think, like many things in schools, the change will happen slowly, and we won't necessarily recognise the change as it happens. But if we just look in 2 or 3 years' time, if we just look back, we won't recognise the school we're at then and where we are now. It'll just happen over time.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a nice day.